And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Night Live again. I'll hand you over to our host, Peter J. How you going, Pete?
Good, thanks, mate, and thanks very much, everybody, for joining us again on the Adelaide Crowcast. That is the Crowcast, not the Crows cast, which we saw bob up this week, but we'll talk about a little bit about that later on. Great to have you all along with us. As always, a heap of things to talk about. Of course, the women's team winning the grand final was absolutely brilliant, and also we've got, obviously, round one to talk about, news around the AFL, and also preview from next week. So we'll introduce all the guys with us this evening. Nikki, Macca, and Vantz is with us tonight. New guest on the show. How are we all, everybody?
Good, great. Thank you.
I'm absolutely ecstatic because we have not only the rising star, we also have the best and fairest.
Well, we will get to that. Vantz, just quickly, thanks very much for joining us, mate. What's your background and how did you get to us?
So I have been a member of Big Footy for, I don't know, close to a decade, I guess. More of a reader, but definitely around the fantasy stuff, definitely get involved. So Supercoach, Dream Team back in the day, AFL Fantasy, the Draft League on the board. So definitely involved in all that. And yeah, I'm so excited. Look, I've been listening to this podcast all of last year and I finally get to hear Nikki's news live. So that's super exciting.
So for all that, I guess you probably end up just being classified as a footy tragic like the rest of us.
I think that is safe to say for anyone who is on this podcast or anyone who's on Big Footy. You have to be a footy tragic. You're going to be on like one of these websites and posting and reading and, you know, I think we're all consumed. And how fantastic is it that we finally have footy back? I know I've had withdrawals. We had the preseason, but yeah, it's finally great to get into the real stuff.
It sure is, mate. And if enthusiasm counts for anything, you'll be doing well tonight. So good stuff. All right, mate. So look, we'll move on now without further ado. We'll get on to the news that is produced, of course, by Nikki.
All right, we have to start off with the fact that it's not official, but they could only tie with Erin Phillips for the award.
Ooh.
And nope, she's got it. That's just come in. So she's just won it clear and fair. Marinoff was the rising star. We had 5 players in the All-Australian team. Just a fabulous weekend all around. Top it off with the MVP yesterday for Erin, the most courageous for Chelsea. And, yeah, it's just been a really good week so far for the footy club.
Well, it's very hard to argue with that, Nicky. I mean, we only missed out on one, which was the goal of the year, wasn't it? Oh, and the mark. No, sorry, no, the mark of the year. Sorry.
Yeah, and also we didn't get the captain, but I have no problems with Daisy Pearce being named as the MVP, the AFL Players captain.
What would have been interesting if we'd only had one captain instead of 2, because I think each of our captains was equally as good as Daisy Phillips.
Sorry, Nikki, to cut you off. I know that we're absolutely excited about that. And the Matt is around the AFL, which is your bit.
There is actually a lot of news, particularly the one thing most teams don't want coming out of round one, which is injuries. And we've already know that Sydney's a bit hard up with Heaney. Was it Heaney with glandular fever? They've now lost Dame Rampy, who jumped over a chain fence and broke his arm. And we actually believe him more so than Degoe because it was actually in full view of the rest of his team, etc. And he was heading back into the Sydney rooms after they'd been out for a run. And he'll be out for about 4 to 5 weeks. Nakia Cockatoo is also going to be out about the same time. He's broken his hand. The good news is that Nick Revolt, where they thought it was an ACL, he thought it was an ACL. He actually hasn't done a lot of damage. They think he'll be back about 4 to 5 weeks as well. So there's a few of that being pushed out. So that's not as bad news, but some slightly okayish news for St Kilda, because after their performance on the weekend, I think they really do need him out there. And I think there was another one.
Drew Petrie broke his hand.
Yeah, Petrie's broken his hand. There's a few broken hands going on. in the AFL at the moment. That's not something you really want to be catching. And there was the news that is slightly footy related regarding Ben Cousins, and I think all we just need to say about this is that he's had a number of chances. The law's done what it's had to do, and it's a very sad situation for everybody involved, particularly the families.
And the other bit of news in waiting is the fact that the AFL will make a decision this week whether the grand final is going to be at the traditional time or whether they're going to be bought off once again and make it into an evening one.
They've been hedging back and forth on this, and they were getting close to be included in my cockwomble of the week just for the way they're kind of playing around with it. Oh, we might talk about it. It might be this week. No, when are you having a meeting? So when are you going to have a decision? Stop fart-assing around, make a decision, and tell us when you're going to make that decision.
Well, apparently it's going to happen this week, Nikki, so perhaps... they have listened to some of the external criticisms of their hedging and dithering, etc.
I just want to go back quickly, Nikki, and I know that that you would support this view, absolutely. And just in relation to Ben Cousins, I can't express enough what a gutful I've had of hearing about this idiot in the news, and I can't express how much I'm sick of the AFL media putting this line of sympathy out for him. He is a criminal. I'm sick of all of the sympathy for the families when nobody mentions a word about the female involved who is being harassed and stalked to the extent that the court today was that concerned for her safety that he was jailed, and that was the primary reason for his being jailed. And I am just so sick of this idiot being held up as some kind of poor person. He is a criminal, and he is a perpetuator of domestic violence. And so, as far as I'm concerned, he's a scumbag, and he deserves nothing. And I'm quite happy that he's in jail for 12 months. That's my bit.
Well, pretty harsh, but probably true.
Well, it's not probably true. It's the facts. That's the facts. He was convicted today of harassing and intimidating
and stalking
his partner.
All right. Well,
to the extent that the court were concerned for his safety, and so they jailed him. That's how bad it was.
Well, the best thing I think they could have done for this guy, if they're going to do him any favours, is to jail him, because he won't be able to get access to. We hope he won't get access to.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
You're so naive, Macca.
I just started qualifying it as I said it, but in theory, they are doing him a favour because in theory, he won't be able to get the same gear that he's been on, and it gives him a chance to go through the withdrawals and get off of it. But I can understand the scepticism whether he can or can't get it in jail, because actually I do know people who've been there and have got it.
Yeah, and I do understand completely where you were coming from there, Pete. The fact that he had so many chances, and he said, and he will do this every time, and he did it again through his lawyer today. It was like, oh no, he really wanted to go into rehab. No, we know he doesn't. Unfortunately, his addiction is so bad that he just uses that as an excuse.
He does, and they wiretapped him, and they've got him on record as saying he's got no intention of giving it up.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, that is correct.
Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to sound negative. Look, let's move on, because we've got so much Crow stuff and so much great Crow stuff to talk about tonight. Nikki, fill your boots. Tell us all about the women's stuff. It was incredibly exciting. I was glued to the TV. When the season started, I wasn't prepared to sit down and watch it, but by season's end, I was an absolute devotee, and the familiar names of the Adelaide women's team were as familiar to me as most of the men. So I couldn't speak more highly about the competition, and certainly the final on Saturday. It was brilliant.
We do like to throw a few brickbats towards the AFL for a lot of their organisation and the way they stuff up things, and we were just talking about something just before there about how we're a bit annoyed at the AFL regarding this. But we do have to give them credit for how this season has gone. I thought it was actually, when they first started it, where they put it, the placement of it, I thought was very clever, and it has turned into an absolute success, way more than even they anticipated. And the fact that tonight for the AFLW Awards, that you have a lot of people in the media just going, why isn't this on telly? You could live stream it from the AFL site. Unfortunately, it wasn't working for me, and I think it wasn't working for a number of other people. But the fact that there is an audience out there, that they did grab the attention. I can speak from personal experience in our division, in our league. We had 2 divisions last year. We have 5 this year. That is what it has done. It's increased that participation. I can't even get it out. Participation rate just beyond. And Fagan, you just saw how the girls reacted to him after they won. They know how big a push he made for it, and everything he has done to support that team. And you could see how appreciative they were of him. So I can't speak highly enough of what the club has done for it. And the way the girls won, they should have won by a lot more. That scoreline flattered Brisbane, and Starcevic actually said afterwards that even if they'd managed to win, it just would not have been right. They were just so outplayed that day. And it was a team performance overall. My hands were shaking from halftime because I thought, we've got a really good chance here. When you guys asked me last week who was going to win, and I said, I wasn't sure, but I thought it would be close. I didn't want it to be that close. It was so annoying towards the end. But it was just amazing.
It was inevitable that it would be close, because these 2 teams had met once before, and it was really, really close then too. So, look, we would have been stiff if we had lost the game, because we had a lot more opportunities, but bad kicking, bad footy, and all that sort of stuff. So, but we had our chances, and fortunately we just made enough of them to win the game. But it was a great game to watch, and very deserving of a grand final.
Vance,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, it was an absolutely terrific game to watch, and I have to agree with Nikki. Like, coming into the season, I don't know how I was feeling. I wasn't planning on watching the whole season, but I watched every game, and it was absolutely brilliant to see the girls, just the determination, the effort put in, and to see them go so far and to play so well. It's just a credit. And look, I think we've talked about it already, but Erin Phillips, my goodness, what an absolute legend she is. She's swept nearly every award out there. And yeah, she's just a credit to herself and the whole state. She's been absolutely amazing.
I think one of the things that ended up appealing to me was that, and I sort of was asking myself after the game, I said, what is it that really drew me in? And I came back to thinking that in watching it, it just felt to me like it was old-fashioned footy. It was old-fashioned footy. It was footy that we used to watch in the 70s, and that's not meaning to be disrespectful. It was real sort of, guts and determination, get the ball forward at all costs.
Agree, Pete. It was just, they just competed. There was just, you could see the passion there. It's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not. We don't have the sponsorship. We don't have all the marketing around it. It was genuine. The girls had passion. They had determination, and that's not just the Crow girls. Like, all the teams out there, they were so good to watch. So, like, we were super lucky that we had such a great team to watch and barrack for, and the inaugural premiers, amazing. But to all the girls out there, every team, it was a tremendous league. And I think the people who showed up, you looked at that first night where they had to lock out Princess Park because there was too many people. It just talks about there's a market for this. People have been wanting it to happen. Nikki, I know you play, so it's amazing that finally women have an ability to play AFL.
And the reason why I actually joined the club last year was because I knew that they were trying to get this league up and going. And it's well past my time. But I also was never going to be able to get to the level that these girls were. But in order for that league to be successful, I knew you needed teams lower down, and you need people like me to turn up every week, play a game if I have to, and just find those new stars to give them a team where they can actually start off with. And that's what just made me... I had tears in my eyes that opening bounce of the Carlton-Collingwood game, because I never thought this would have happened. And when the girls won, and it was actually my nephew's birthday, and thank God his mother took him away because he hates it when we watch football. And my mother was yelling all through the last quarter of how much the umpires were cheating. So, which, you know, she's so passionate about something when the umpires are just deliberately cheating and trying to make the other team win. And she's just pointing at the screen going, look at them all crying. And I've just turned and going, look at me. So I'm crying too. The emotion was so much. But going to the games as well, there was a completely different feel. And you're right, Pete. It's very like the 70s in a way, because a lot of those were the Saturday afternoon games where the whole family would go along.
Yeah, true.
And that's what this was like here. It was a completely different crowd because you didn't have the stands. You don't have your set seats. You find a deck chair. Your kids run around and make new friends and find somebody else to kick the footy with. And it's great to see that back. And I think part of it is that the passion of those girls, as you said, Vance, that they didn't believe this was going to be possible for them, and they were taking every single opportunity they had because they're not sure whether it will ever come again, in a way.
100%.
And the other thing that, you know, they surprised us all with their physicality, you know.
Well, surprise you lot, not me.
Well, fair enough. But as I, you know, jokingly said a couple of weeks ago, we used to say that Luke Jericho played like a girl. He never played as hard as me. Never. And, you know, they go at 100%. And the other thing, like Pete said, he is right about the old-fashioned style of footy, because it was because they don't kick as far, you get a lot more contest man on man. And
woman on woman even.
Well, sorry, person on person, or whatever it is, you know. But you've got to be politically correct, I know.
We don't on the field. We yell man up, so.
I don't normally worry about it. I have to on here, apparently. But anyhow, it was really good to watch, and they look like, the other thing too, they look like the hell they enjoyed playing it as well.
Yeah, agree.
A couple of things just from the game itself. I was first of all pleased that the AFL obviously listened to the Crowcast and listened to the fact that I wanted time on in the particularly in the last quarter, something I called for a few weeks ago. You'll all remember that I thought that would something that would add, because I was sick of the what looked to me to be time wasting tactics to run the clock down, and so I think that the game benefited from that. The other thing I want to talk about is Aaron, I know that you said it was a team win, and of course you need contributions from all players, but it was just one of the most phenomenal performances I've seen from an athlete in Erin Phillips, and I wonder if that was probably, you know, possibly due to the fact that she's a professional athlete. Let's not forget she's a professional athlete. She is still contracted in the WNBA, and so she's a lifetime professional. The ground that she covered. To be, you know, defence up forward, you know, and I thought it was really fitting at the end of the game that she won the last two, you know, desperate possessions in defence, where she plonked herself down there, and she reminded me, I know this is probably going to sound like a bizarre comparison, but she reminded me in many ways of James Hird at his best. And the reason I make that comparison is that I always felt that James Hird had an innate ability to not play a particular position, but he had that ability to just to put himself wherever he was needed around the ground and would be able to influence the play, whether that be forward, back or midfield. And I just felt that she had that same innate ability just to put herself where she was needed at any particular given time, and that with a combination of obviously a very, very good understanding of the game and reading the play, but also just phenomenal fitness to be able to cover the ground and to be able to do those things. So I take my hat off. I thought it was one of the great performances in footy.
Yeah, and the other thing you've got to take into account with Erin Phillips is that there's an 18-year gap in since she played, either 17 or 18-year gap. And that's astonishing. But it just goes to show that if she had been playing all the time in another league somewhere else, just how good she would be, because her performances got better and better every week that she played, culminating in that magnificent performance in the grand final. And that was, an absolutely standout performance. And Pete, you were quite right. The ground she covered was enormous, because you'd see her in the forward line making a menace of herself. They'd get possession of the ball, they'd go around via the wing, and they'd if they paused for a second, next minute you'd see her taking the ball in defence. So she must have been running and running. I'd hate to say how much ground she covered during the game, but it'd be an enormous amount.
Yeah, sorry. I think that was that Fiend that put that message on the on the chat there, just saying that I broke my Essendon rule in comparing James Heard. I apologise for that, folks.
Can't be having that.
I think given the circumstances with James Heard and the tragic circumstances in personally at the moment, I think that we'll forgive you for that, Pete.
But it is a pretty apt kind of description, because she just kind of instinctively knew when to go up a level. And Kate Sheehan, again, being interviewed tonight before the awards on AFL 360, and they asked her who's going to win, and she nominated Erin, and she said, and it's not just because of, she's had a really great season, but she said you talk to any of the players who have played against her, and they are in awe of what she can do. And I just love, to me, almost the moment of that grand final is the video that the AFL Women's Twitter put up, because they captured her, and just to see him crying, to see how proud he was. And I have to give a bit of a brickbat to Eben, who was a Port supporter, and he refuses to wear Crows gear even though his daughter plays for the Crows.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's pathetic.
He'll wear a red shirt, but he won't get an actual Crows stuff. There is Greg Phillips, 8-time premiership player from Adelaide, proudly walking around in his Crows top. And Robbo and Jared interviewed Erin and Beck tonight, and they asked her the question, if Port did manage to come in, hypothetically, would she swap over? And Beck butts in with, no, they're not allowed to take her. And she actually was going, yep, look, I will always support Port Adelaide, but I am a Crow player. I am proud to be a Crows player. What that club has done for myself and my family, I just cannot thank them enough.
Now, Nikki, I've got to take your task about having a crack at that, her old man, because my son played for Port Adelaide as a magpie, and you don't know how much that hurt me. It's just the fact that he having to go there, and I mean, I just couldn't say, "Come on, Port Adelaide," and I would never wear their gear. so you got to be fair and realise it goes the other way around as well. And I mean, it was horrible because I mean he played there for 4 years before I managed to get him out of there and get him to concentrate on his studies and go to university. But I was so glad when he left there, because for me it was uncomfortable, because I was at the stage where, and there was no Crows at that stage. It was just, I think it was pre-Crows. Yes, it was just. And I hated Port Adelaide. I really hated them, but I had to go and watch my son play in a magpie Guernsey, and the best I could do was saying, "Come on," that's about all I could manage. But I couldn't say the name.
Well, there is no greater Port hater. That rhymes, doesn't it? No greater Port hater than me. And as you all well know, that I have a file about 3 inches thick, currently sitting in a psychiatrist's room at the moment, trying to work out why it is that I get far more enjoyment out of seeing Port lose than seeing the Crows win. And it's well known in my house that you can come and sit and watch football with me if the Crows are playing, but don't come anywhere near me if Port are playing, because my intensity at barracking for the other team frightens everybody away. That's how bad hung up I am on Port, and that goes back to the 50s when my dad used to play at West Adelaide. And so, it is a really, really burning hatred. All that said, my son gets drafted by the Power. I'm up there singing "Never Tear Us Apart." Don't worry about that. If my kid is playing, if he ever got drafted to the AFL, I wouldn't care who he got drafted to. I'm there with the colours on. I wouldn't care if it was Geelong. I wouldn't care if it was Port. I wouldn't care if it was bloody Sydney. I would just be, thrilled and amazed that he's actually playing. But anyway, that's just me. We're all different, aren't we?
You're a better man than I am, Gunga did.
Sorry, mate. We're all different on that score. There's no doubt about it. Rightio. Moving along as we move through the program, I think we'll probably leave the women there. I think we're all agreed it was an amazing day for the Adelaide Football Club, and most particularly for the women. And it was great the very next day that round one kicked off at Adelaide Oval, and it was terrific to be there at the start to see the women come onto the ground and get a great round of applause, really, really warmly received by the crowd. It was really, really enjoyable to see them and to be able to give them a good round of applause. Was everybody at the game on Sunday, and did we all catch that?
I was, and I know Macca was. What about you, Vance?
Yes, I was at the game, every game, so yeah, it was fantastic. Highlight of the day clearly was getting that yellow flannel. That was amazing. Great to take that home. I grabbed 2, so thank you to the person next to me.
I quite liked the fact that when the rain started, I've never heard a crowd cheer for rain before.
Hey, I love that yellow towel because of the weather, because that heat was so intense.
Yeah,
I just went straight to the toilets and I got the water into them, got some ice and from the bar and packed the yellow towel with ice and wetted it up, and that was fantastic to use throughout the day.
Yeah. Good move by the club, yeah.
Yeah, Fred, because we've got 8 seats together, so in 2 rows, and somebody in the front row, so in front of me, he'd wet the towel, and so every time he actually pulled it out to do the little wave above the top, I'm like, do that more, because I was getting the nice little sprinkles of water, which was cooling down. So I think they were a really big hit. It was, oh my God, it was just horrible to sit there, though. That was oppressive weather. And the fact, I think Sauce said he went through 3 Guernseys during the game just because of the sweat.
Yeah, I can believe that. I mean, it would have been atrocious being a player running around in that heat, because it wasn't just hot, it was bloody humid as well.
And my father and I, when we first arrived up at the Lindsay Head bar before the game, and we're just like feeling that heat and the humidity, and we both started, discussing who's this actually going to benefit, because we thought that whoever could cope with that particular weather would outlast the other team. And for me, it was, we've had this humid weather all season, so we're actually used to it, whereas Sydney, they've had some hot days and they've had some humid days, but not consistently like we have. And you also knew that the ball was going to be a bit heavier and was going to do weird things in humidity, because it does, and you just can't pick it. And you could kind of tell that in the first quarter, that players weren't able to judge things that well.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting with the ball, because I think I was listening to something and someone was talking about how they change the ball so often now. So the impact of the humidity and, all that, it doesn't impact it as much. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting point, Nicky.
Yeah, and also because of the fact that they haven't played under that pressure. And even though they've had a pre-season series, it's still not at the same level as when you play the very first game of the year. And that's why, you'll always find a lot more errors, I think, made in the early games than later.
So how do we see the game, guys? It was a game in 2 halves, particularly with our goal kicking. I think we ended up kicking 15 goals, 2 or 3 or something in the second half, after some abominable goal kicking in the first half. I thought we had pretty much control for 70 to 80% of the game, and really GWS hung in on some fairly lucky goals that they were able to snaffle. There wasn't much system in the way that they were playing, and they weren't getting their goals easy. And I think it's always an indicator of where a game sits as to how easy a team can get goals when they need them. And GWS just seemed to be relying on some great skill and a little bit of luck to get their goals, and there wasn't that much system. So I thought that we had control for most of the game, and I thought we had a really, really good even contribution. There were a good 3 or 4 players who stood out, of course, but I think that the one that I probably enjoyed the most was the return of Riley Knight, a real favourite of mine. And in his first game back this season, I think he had 1 game last year, but really it's his first full game for well over a year, to come back and pick up 18 possessions And 2 goals was a fantastic effort. And I think that there was nothing more that exemplified Riley Knight in the way that he plays. That in that first quarter, he when a ball was kicked over towards the Eddie Betts pocket, and Richard Douglas was chasing the ball over along with opposition, and Riley Knight, I noticed, sprinted a good 50-odd metres, just work rate, just heart, and ran and got there and just made the shepherd on Richard Douglas and was able to bump the GWS player out of the way, and that allowed Dougie to get the ball to McGovern, and that was McGovern's first goal. So early in the game, so he probably had plenty of juice in the tank, but it was just typical Riley Knight to make that effort to get over and make that shepherd and do those critical 1%ers. He's a fabulous player, and I was really, really happy to see him back in the side.
Yeah, well, he's going to make things complicated because if Walker does come back this week, and he's no certainty apparently, but if he does, then that means somebody goes out. And I thought he played like you, Pete. I thought he played a fabulous game. And we've had a transition in the last couple of years from being what I regarded as a fairly slow side to a very, very quick side. We had that. I think that was the last quarter when we had that farcical goal when there was about 6 of us streaming towards goal and one of them.
Yep.
That was one of the most farcical things I've seen on football. It looked like, the only thing that could tackle us was a witch's hat. There was nothing there.
There was one GWS player who was chasing. The rest were just like, oh, okay.
No, but we had a sort of a mosquito fleet going. And, as I also said on Sunday night, I always lamented the fact we never had a talented young Indigenous player up forward like a lot of teams do have. We've got 4 of them now in our side.
And it really is. We've never had a fast midfield like this before.
No, and it was fantastic. And our very much maligned midfield, I thought, was turned out to be one of our strengths because of the amount of running it could do, and the amount of speed it's got, and the amount of possession it got. So overall, I thought that the area in which a lot of people thought we'd lose the game was perhaps one of the areas that helped us win the game. And just on Hardigan, I've got to give him a kick up the bum for his first quarter. He looked like he was on a seek and destroy mission, but trying to destroy us. And thank God, he went back and got his brain out of the room in quarter time, and he started operating all right after that because he can play. But he just had a shocking first quarter. And Kelly did a couple of miserable handballs that turned over goals. They got a lot of goals like that, which was sort of out of nowhere because we did something very poor or something very stupid that you would not expect at that level. But overall, when you look at the scoreboard, you've got to say we played very, very well against a side that was very highly rated, and it had a couple out, accepted. We had a couple out, and obviously we've got greater depth than them.
It's really interesting what Mac is talking about there as well, because we're discussing about the midfield and we've talked about this organic growth that was going to come from within. And I think a lot of us think, natural progression of these players will see some development, but like just the chains of handball, and you know that we're handballing a bit too heavy when the Crows supporters around you start shouting, kick the ball. But I felt like the pace and the quickness that we had throughout the midfield, and you're right, Macca, about the Indigenous players, Malira linking up with Cameron for the midfield, who was absolutely phenomenal in this game. It was just great to see something a little different to what we used to. I liked the pace. I liked that we were able to show that forward thrust, because I agree. I also felt coming into this game, I felt like GWS midfield was going to run through us, but it was amazing to see them actually step up and to see that development happen from pre-season and that natural growth within these younger players. I'm super excited about what they can do this season.
Yep, same here.
And they will drop off at times
because they're young.
Because they are young and they're still learning their way through. But I think there's enough of a system there, and we were rotating quite quickly, which was really putting GWS off guard. And we had a couple of different setups. And what I was really impressed with was that even though that second quarter and we were kicking all those points and everything else, where they got us in the first quarter was when they got on the run, they were straight down through the corridor in the middle. And about part the way through the second quarter, that started to get corrected. And then from halftime onwards, they weren't allowed anywhere near that corridor. And that slowed them right down and they didn't know what to do.
I think Felice makes a very good point on the chat. The fact that GWS really aren't known as a particularly hard, tough midfield, and last year we smoked this team last year when we weren't expected to, and we've done it again. So it will be interesting to see how we go against perhaps some tougher midfields and harder-bodied midfields.
Yeah, that's true, but they still had some talented boys in the midfield. I mean, Callum Ward is a hard midfielder, and
and Scully.
Scully's he's hard. He's a good runner as well. No, they had a pretty good midfield though. Canilio, he's a star Canilio, so that was a big one out for them. But as I said, we had a couple out too.
Now, do you think to me, what the most pleasing thing about it, the whole game, was once we started to get that roll on, and I know I yelled out and a few other people around me just started to yell out, put the foot to the throat. And we did. And it's been a long time since we've seen us sustain that pressure continually.
Yeah, we did. Once we turned the game around, Nikki, in the first quarter, as I said, we looked like we were determined to keep them in the game. And when we got about 19 or 20 points down, I actually said to them, I think we're going to get our asses caned the way we're going. But you're right. Once we started turning around, and then it became a little bit of a struggle. But then we just kept on going, and they could not keep up with the pressure we applied to them. And in particular, one of their lads, Kelly, he's a very, very good player. He was dominant on his wing in the first half. We managed to subdue him in the second half as well, and that took away a lot of their drive.
Not that I'm biased at all, but what about 21's game? That was just something special, wasn't it? He was absolutely on fire. 10 inside 50s from his 19 possessions, if you don't mind. And there was some ridiculous metres gained stat as well. I didn't see the actual number.
He had the most metres gained of any player in round one.
He disappeared. He disappeared in the third quarter. Otherwise, it would have been the complete game, Pete.
I think you're right. I think that if we'd got 4 full quarters out of him and maybe 24, 25 possessions, then that's a 3-vote game. But still, he's getting there and to have the influence that he had. And isn't it a great thing to see a Crows player just waltzing through inside 50 on the run, and you can actually get up out of your seat before he kicks it because you know where it's going. You know that it's going straight through the middle.
Bloody shock to the system, actually, after some of the ones we've had in the past, like Ian Perry, for example.
Now, did you actually see him in the very last moments of the game, Pete, when Eddie had the ball lining up for goal? The crowd starts the Eddie chant. Rat, who's standing near him, turns to the crowd and with both arms motions for them to get louder.
No, I didn't see it.
He's an arrogant little shit who loves to entertain the crowd.
He loves a party, Rat. He loves a party.
And he's got some weird new goal celebration thing or whatever, which is quite amusing. I also love the fact that our forwards all seem to have a different handshake with each other.
Yeah, Atkins has got this one where he sort of goes all rigid with his arms pumping up and down on the spot.
With his fingers doing weird things. I think it comes from the NBA. He's actually copying. I know him and Charlie are very, very keen NBA followers, and I think they copy a few of the celebrations from there.
I guess they don't have a patent on it, so they can do that.
So if Tex is going to come back in, is it likely that it's between Menzel and Knight who gets dropped for him if McGovern comes up?
I'd think so. I think they'd be the two that we involve. Some might say Hampton, but I think that Hampton.
No, because he's midfield.
Exactly. That's why it won't be Hampton. But it'll be one of those two. And on what I saw, well, it's hard to say because I thought Menzel got better too in the second half, and and there's no doubt that he certainly put his body in, and he did go in hard for the ball. So there was very hard to criticise him, but like Pete said, Riley Knight he was fantastic. So nobody deserves to go out Adelaide. And that's going to be hard. I mean, Douglas has played the game of his life and turned the clock back. I really don't know. I'm not going to even try to pick it.
What do you reckon, Vance?
Yeah, I think it's a super difficult one. I think Menzel's unlucky just because I felt like Riley just had such a great game, and I don't think you can drop him after that game. He just played so well. So I think Menzel also played a good game. Like, he was solid throughout. I think he got better as the game went on, but yeah, I definitely feel like it's probably going to be Menzel who's going to be out. But I don't think it's the end of Menzel for the season. I think he's definitely going to be on the periphery, and hopefully some good SNFL form getting back in soon. And
does Lever come back in this week?
Not from reading the way it was talked about in the recap of the SNFL trial game. And also, if you listen to Park after the game, and he actually said that he watched the SNFL trial, he was kind of, I got the impression of he needs to do a little bit more before he can come back in.
Well, I think the same was said about Tomo as well, where he really needs to show a lot more. And I don't know where Tomo fits this year. I open the discussion to you guys. He
doesn't.
I think that's right. I think he's going to be someone who's a backup, but we saw that pace on the weekend, and he comes back in, he stagnates that. So I don't know. He's going to be spending a lot of time in the SNFL.
Look, he's only going to get a game when he's short through injury, because his style of play, and he's been very good for us over the years, and he's given his heart and his soul, but his legs are too slow. We're playing a much quicker type of game, and he can't keep up with that. So he'll only get a game when there's an absolute need for it because of major injuries to a large number of players. But the one I was talking about with Lever is that Kelly was marginal. I thought he wasn't bad, but he made a couple of bad errors, and his disposal is not 100% what it should be. But then again, the position that Lever plays really is not Kelly's, it's really Otten's. And Otten's terrific till he just totally ran out of petrol.
I rewatched the game, Macca, and you're being very kind to Jake Kelly. Whilst his positioning was excellent and his reading of the play was excellent, he turned the ball over a lot. I mean, the D percentage was 58, but even that doesn't tell the story with Jake. He was very indecisive by hand and by foot, and I worry about Jake Kelly against Hawthorn's smart forwards. I know Lever's not a like for like really, but I would trust Lever more than Jake Kelly against their smaller mid forwards.
Look, that's probably likely because I don't disagree with what you've said at all. Perhaps I was a little bit kind in the way I expressed it, but in terms of the actuality of it, you did raise the 58% on Sunday, and that probably is a slightly kind figure to him. But you can't knock the guy for trying, but if you're going to have a very polished side, but I'm not sure that he's going to fit into it because he hasn't got that polish. So you're right, Lever, even if that is slightly out of position for him, will probably do a better job.
It'll be a matter of whether Lever's conditioning is up to it, because they've got that mosquito fleet, Puopolo and Rioli and Bruce, among others through there. You'd imagine that one of Otten or Kelly / Lever would take Gunston, leaving Hardigan and Talia against their tall timber. I don't know whether Jake's up for a match-up against Bruce or a Puopolo, to be honest.
Well, if you're on Gunston he covers an enormous amount of ground. I saw him actually around the centre line and around the back line to him quite a lot too. I don't know whether he's kick chasing or whether that's the role he's playing, but he didn't spend a lot of time in the actual forward spot where he normally plays.
No, he actually Clarkson played him a lot across half back. Actually, I I don't know whether that was just a tactic for Essendon or whether that's a new role for Gunston, but I did read a lot of Hawthorn supporters lamenting the fact that you don't play your leading goal kicker from the previous season in the backlines. Who knows?
I did pick that up, that he was there. Every time I looked for him, that's where he was. So he spent a large amount of time there. And if he's running around from the forward line down there and up and back, well, Otten would be, we'd have to take him to hospital with exhaustion. But but
nice one, Macca.
Yeah, so that's where Kelly might survive, but I don't know.
Now, just for those listening and wondering what happened to Pete's voice, Pete had some technical issues, so a bit of a rotation at halftime. He's licking his wounds now, and I'm taking over. So shape up, you people.
It just means you're not annoying them in the chat anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I can't type anymore because it makes too much noise, clacking away at keyboard.
Very true.
So, I mean, everyone was saying Rory Laird was best on ground, and it's amazing when you watch a game again and you look at different things. And I'd just like to make a comment backing up on what you guys were talking about earlier with regards to Rory Atkins. His game was outstanding.
Yeah, it was him. For me, it was between him, Cameron, and Laird. And Laird was just absolutely racking it up, and his disposal out of the backlines was superb. But Atkins kind of got us going in the middle. He'd done a bit of a job on Shield to start off with, and then we released him. And if Cameron had to kick those goals, it totally would have been I think he would have then been the one that you would say was best on ground. And to me, it's actually great that if you have three players that are so close to being best on, that's why you get a performance and a scoreline like we did. We'd prefer it to be a much nicer scoreline with even less points and more goals, but still quite nice.
When they talk about organic growth, I would sort of, when the expression was used earlier in the year,
I thought they'd been smoking the organic growth, to be honest.
Well, I did. I poo-pooed it, and I thought, how much crap are they going to feed us, really? But then when you look at the way that Charlie Cameron is exponentially improving, I mean, he is going to be some player when he's finished. That's his 50th game, and he never, in his whole life, before he played for the Crows, he'd only ever played 30 games of football in his life. He was a rugby player. And he'd only ever played 30 games before. So in total in his life, he's played 80 games of football. This guy is going to be anything. He just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the one thing that, as Nicky quite rightly pointed out, if he kicked those goals, I think there's about 3 of them that he should have kicked, he would have been probably our best player. And he's just going to be better and better and better because his confidence just grows every time he goes out on the oval, and his self-belief, you can see now, is starting to grow and grow as well. He's going, and then on top of that, then you've got McGovern in the forward pocket. He's going to be anything as well. So this organic growth thing might just happen.
Well, one thing that was noticeable to me and what we felt was one of his deficiencies pre-season was his disposal efficiency and his composure under pressure. And I don't know about you, Macca, but it felt to me as if he looked far more composed when he was up the ground by hand and by foot.
Yep, definitely true.
And I think, and the other thing was that he was in the game for longer periods, and that was another knock that we had on him, that he'd be flashing in and out, and he'd go missing for large periods. And, whilst he only had the what was it, about 23 posies or something like that, and he did...
They were how damaging, though.
Yeah, surprisingly went at 52% disposal efficiency, which really actually surprises the hell out of me, because I didn't see him burn the ball terribly much. So maybe I was just blinded by the good play.
Is it that you lose even more points in terms of disposal efficiency if you miss goals?
Yeah, probably. I was wondering about that myself. because he did. I mean, there were three sitters, so that's obviously going to go against you in terms of your efficiency rating. Yep.
Yeah, but overall outstanding. And Macca, you made a very good observation on Sunday, and when I watched the game again, I was kind of taking note with regards to what you said, and you're dead set right. The fact that we've now got some more outside run has taken the pressure off a D-Mac and a Richie Douglas and a Smithers, because they're not the go-to person on the outside all the time. That load is now shared between half a dozen of them, and as a consequence, I think it allows blokes like D-Mac and Richie Douglas to not be caught out of position so much because they're just running back and forth trying to be that outside outlet. Now we have other outlets on the outside of the packs, and I think it benefited blokes like McKay and Douglas, and I also felt that whilst Smith was a little in and out of the game, I felt like he was just returning to his decisive best. He was quite damaging when he did get the ball and did run and carry quite a bit.
He needed to get a bit closer to Stevie J at times. He gave him a little bit too much leeway in terms of defence, but for that matchup, he definitely won that. What it says to me is that it makes it actually difficult for opposition teams to shut us down because they don't know who's going to be that outlet player each time. And if you've got a number of them to try and stop, they don't have the players to do that. And it means they're concentrating too much on the opposition. And I think it gives us an advantage in that respect in terms of coaching.
Well, we certainly had options galore on the weekend, no doubt about that. Now, the thing we really have to do is to see us carry on and beat Hawthorn this week. And then, beating Hawthorn for us in Melbourne is never an easy feat. We always manage to somehow lose by 3 or 4 points. But I think the Hawthorn we're playing is not quite the Hawthorn that used to be, and hopefully we are slightly better than the Crows we used to be. So I'll certainly be tipping us to win this week, but it isn't going to. I think it'll be a very, very good gauge for us to see how much we've improved.
And that's a really good segue. I think we've probably done the Giants game to death. Let's move on for a couple of minutes and just talk about the game coming up against Hawthorn, obviously on Saturday afternoon. So a 6-day break coming off a set of pretty trying conditions. And obviously we haven't beaten Hawthorn for, what is it now, 7 years?
7 years since Laird's never played a game where we've beaten Hawthorn.
That's right. And my opinion, before we get into the discussion, is that on paper we're a far better outfit than Hawthorn are, and this game will be all about what's between the ears.
100% right. That's exactly where I was coming from. But, we've got the talent. That's not in question, and I think that they are down on talent compared to last year. So there's no doubt that on paper we should win the game, and it'll be very disappointing if we don't because, and it's not that as easy as what I just said, but it's a real test. But if we've got the right stuff between the ears and we're not too drained from the game, then I would expect us to win.
Whilst they've still got Burgoyne, who is absolute class, and they're going to get Hodge back. But I think actually the loss of Mitchell and Lewis is a huge loss to their midfield because we've just seen what the pair of them are doing in much younger midfields, and they've lost some outside run in Hill. I'm not that worried about their midfield, which is, it was those guys who really got it going against us last time.
It's super interesting you say that as well, Nikki, because I feel like from Hawks' perspective as well, it's that leadership inside that they're just really missed last week. I know Hodge was out as well, but missing Mitchell and Lewis, I think it was pretty evident that they just lacked structures throughout the midfield. They just seemed a bit everywhere. They've got new players coming in like Yago Mira, who's still coming back from injury. Tom Mitchell last week, I don't think we can underestimate him though. He had 37 touches last week, collected them like anything. So I think it's easy just to say they lost against Essendon. Maybe we should go in confident, but they on paper, I know you said it wasn't a great team, but there's still a lot of good players there, so it's something we're gonna have to watch out for.
Yeah, can't argue that. But and the interesting one is Mitchell. Does anybody know what his efficiency rating was? Because a lot he's excellent in the packs at getting the ball, but to me he blasts it forward in the right direction. But he's rarely looking for a man.
It was 67.6% last week, so that's about, 2 in 3?
Slightly under what you want, but not terrible.
See, the loss of Sam Mitchell, though, is that even though he was the one who would get that quick little handball out to another attacking midfielder to then move it on. And you get to be able to see him at games that he would point and tell them where to go. He was essentially a coach on the field. That's what I think they've lost. And you can see that also with Lewis, who's gone to Melbourne. Now, even though Melbourne has Viney and Jones as captain, you betcha every single other player in that, including those two, will be listening to whatever Lewis says. Well, he'll be an unofficial captain on the field.
Yeah, that was actually stated by a couple of their players how great it was to have him out there. You know, when the going was tough, he's the one that inspired everybody and got them going. And it was the same. Well, not the Eagles were ever in trouble, but Mitchell, he was fantastic for them. I mean, it just looked like it didn't care what Guernsey he's playing in. He could have been still playing in the brown and yellow. He just played the same game. And, very inspiring, both of them, because they're both leaders and they're both excellent distributors of the ball.
Yeah, Valus on the chat makes a really good point, and I agree. They made up for any deficiencies in the past in their midfield with just excellent disposal and excellent decision-making. And Mitchell and Lewis were integral in that. And they just looked a little bit at sea at times. Hawthorn on the weekend. They weren't as clean and crisp as they have been in the past. And you just wonder, with that lack of composure and perhaps getting used to some adjustments in roles and game plan against a team, certainly if we show up, a team that will be in their faces and at the contest and not giving them a hell of a lot of time. And God, I hope I see us push up. If we zone back on Hawthorn, I'll shoot myself. But assuming we play the way that we played against GWS... We
won't be live streaming that, people.
No. Assuming we play a similar style to we did against GWS, they're going to be pressed for time, Hawthorn, to set up into the usual structures with new players. And Hodges' inclusion notwithstanding, I think they're just going to struggle to execute their game plan.
Yeah, look, and Gibson at fullback's been in very poor form too. So he played very poorly in the the JTT or whatever it was series.
JLT.
He doesn't like having to actually be responsible for someone.
No, he likes being the loose man. But
and unfortunately, with our forward line, he's got to man up on somebody.
He never keep up with them.
No, that is quite a fairly fast forward line we've got going on there.
I think he's going to be have a few problems no matter who we line up on him. I just want to say one thing which is not quite about the game, but it did concern a Hawthorn player last week. Vickery, the most absurd free kick I've ever seen in my life, that he didn't nominate that he was the man going up for the ball. Now, this rule is nominating. This is schoolboy stuff.
Hang on, Macca, is this your rant? Let's make this your rant.
I'd say it's his rant.
This is going to be a bloody rant.
Come on, then. Well, I haven't got a bloody Mac the knife, so just get on with it.
All right, I've got the knife out and I'm stabbing it. I am furious. I saw that, and, I mean, Vickery went up for the ruck. There was only two people went up for the bloody ball. And free kick against you, goal to the opposition. Why? Because you didn't say you're going to be the one that's going to go up. Surely, the thing is to stop the third man up. And any two players should be able to go up for the bloody ball. This business of nominating it is got whiskers on it.
You know why he didn't nominate?
Maybe umpires can't actually count more than two.
No, you know why he didn't nominate? It's because he was actually late to the contest. So he was caught out of position. He had to run to the contest. And as a consequence, he wasn't around when the umpire was calling for nominations. So when he rocked up and contested the ruck contest, because even though he was obviously the designated ruckman, he hadn't put in his little time card to the umpire on the way through saying I'm the ruckman, and he got done. Oh, I'm with you, mate. It's petty and ridiculous. And
it's
surely
schoolboy. It's schoolboy. You do this in grade 1.
Yeah, sure. That's right. You start wearing armbands to make sure you don't go in the back lines if you're a forward. Surely, as long as you rightly point out, one person from each team contests the ruck contest, then surely that's okay. You don't need to bloody nominate. And if the umpires are that stupid that they can't work out that one-on-one is a fair contest and doesn't, contravene third man up rules, then we need some new bloody umpires.
Well, we do need them anyhow, because the other thing they can't seem to work out is when it's obvious to the whole crowd, for example, that a bloke's accidentally kicked off the side of his boot and it's gone out of bounds, and then they pay not putting enough effort into keeping the ball into play.
That's, you know what? I don't mind that one.
I don't mind the rule, but I don't like it when you are trying to keep the ball into play. They actually are trying to keep it in play, but it's actually come off the side of their boot.
Yeah, well, that's just a bad call.
Well, they do call it though. I watch every game, and I saw in every game it got called.
Pathetic effort. Well, that's pretty hard on an individual, but he's going to have to live with that.
When they brought it also into the AFLW to do it, and she said it just feels ridiculous. I have to stand there and put my hand up and go, "Yeah, I'm going to do it."
Anyway, Macca, thanks for the rant, mate.
Yeah, no, just on the ruck, it's a real rant about the ruck. The ruck is bloody stupid. It's just two people go up, doesn't matter who.
I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't work out the ruck contest. Vantz, we spoke about this on Sunday, but you might have a different perspective because I was looking at some of those frees. Even the second time round, I couldn't work out what the hell was going on.
No, I don't know what else I can add to this because I'm still perplexed as well. I think I understand why they've decided to bring in this rule. I think I was happy with people having third man up, but I just think it's going to be interesting to see the more dominant ruckman come out. But it's just like Macca said, it's very childish to say, here I am, I'm here, I'm ready to tap the ball. Like, just let them go at it. If the second person runs up, then just call the free. But it's just too ticky touchwood for me.
Even the centre bounce ones were weird. Did you notice? I reckon there was about half a dozen free kicks given at the centre bounce, and most of them were against Sauce and also JJ. I don't think Mumford actually gave one away in the centre square. And I'd be buggered if I know what was going on in there.
Well, I don't know if the ball was it was thrown up, so I'm not sure if it was because they were shepherding out, or I don't know what the umpire was interpreting, but I know people
Mumford
around.
Was doing.
Well, I think everyone around us was thinking, what is going on here? Because no one in the crowd seemed to know, but that's the umpire's decision, I guess.
Can I be really clear on this? We've got a circle that only the two ruckmen are allowed to go into. Now, it is impossible to shepherd in a one-on-one contest because the definition of shepherding is to allow another person to come in. So all you're doing in those circumstances is making position. You're not fucking shepherding, pardon my French. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's my rant.
No, you have to be right because the idea of getting penalised for being shepherding is just shepherding it so that it benefits another teammate. And you are right. I saw one there where the umpire put two arms out, and I thought he was a little jet plane. He was going to take off for one moment, but
that was on fire tonight.
And it would have been bloody good if he had him. But by the same token, I think that was the clue. I think he was calling it shepherding, like you said. But to me, I thought that. Mumford at times like the bloody Maverick Mauler. He was killing Jacob physically, and then he ended up getting a free kick for it. I was totally confused, but I think that's what the little peanuts out there were paying anyhow.
Which is stupid because Sammy is allowed to contest by taking position, and we don't have to go over it anymore because we went over it on Sunday night. But taking the ball drop position to try and cut out Mumford's run is a valid tactic, and it's not frickin' shepherding. It's not anything except being a good ruckman who can't jump very well. And that's what Sam is. So I hope they get that cleared out, because if we go through weeks and weeks of these stupid, nonsensical centre bounce adjudications, it's going to cost someone a game at one stage. It's so arbitrary, it's ridiculous.
Well, I think with all the new rule changes they brought in, we're in for a season of bloody agony, I reckon.
Yep.
For a bit of fun. So should we move on to the Cockwomble?
Yep, let's move on to the Cockwomble, because we're over the hour and everyone's getting sick of us. So hang on a minute, I've got some music, I think.
And I've got an essay to finish.
That was very quiet. I'm going to have to make that louder. Anyway, go on. Go on.
Yes, because I couldn't hear a thing. I like to, just enjoy that piece of music.
I know, you just bop along to that.
I do. It's fun. Righto. So, Cockwomble of the week. Well, we could go with Talia, who was sure he was in the goal square when he decided to thump the ball through, but he wasn't. As any good backman should know, you try and bluff the umpire, but I do love the umpire actually pointing up at the scoreboard for the first time ever and just going, look, you weren't. Which that shut up any argument that he had for it. I'm kind of thinking that Dunstall, for his little rant that he decided to have on the couch on Monday about our win for the women, in particular highlighting the two last disposals, one for Bevan and one against Phillips. Bevan actually did get her foot to the ball. Phillips probably just slightly missed it, but the umpire's on the wrong side, so it looked like she was making an attempt. And he's like, there should have been, 2 free kicks played for Brisbane in this.
What,
it just
right at the end? Was he talking about the one right at the end?
Yeah.
The ball actually got knocked out of her hand. Or
yes.
It got jarred out of her hand. That never gets paid. And if I know she was appealing for it. What's her name?
Sabrina. Yeah. Frederick Taub.
Yeah. I know she was appealing for it right at the end there, but I watched it again, and it was almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
The ball gets knocked free, and the siren goes. So it would have been against play and against previous interpretations if that had been paid.
And to me, it just showed that he hadn't been watching the AFLW all season anyhow, because holding the ball calls are very rare, and you have to do an awful lot to get a holding. You have to be hanging on to it for a very long time before you get a holding the ball called against you.
You're right, Nicky. It's a lot harder to get a hold of the ball in the women's game than it is in the men's.
Yeah, because it is adjudicated differently, and he's going against on what the men's are. So that I kind of thought was a bit funny. But I reckon maybe the Carlton Twitter tonight, in putting out, they were putting out the who got votes from their team. I did find it quite amusing that they claimed Chelsea Randall and one of our other players as Carlton. Oh no, they claimed Erin and Chelsea as Carlton players. They actually had their names, and in brackets they had CAR after their name. And it's like, that's very nice, Carlton. You're not allowed to have had 2 co-captains. Bit of a stuff up from their Twitter account. To be fair, they were doing it quite quickly, but considering the fact that we refer to them as the feeder club,
they don't get a lot right down there, Carlton.
No,
really.
No.
So that was quite amusing, but the outstanding.
Hang on, I've got a nomination. Mick Malthouse. I don't know whether he's figured in your considerations, but Mick Malthouse during the week defending the recruitment of Dale Thomas to Carlton when he had a bung ankle, and saying that he's been out of luck and he's got an injury and blah blah blah, and he was worth the money and he's this and that. If ever there was a cockwomble, it was Mick Malthouse trying to justify the stupidity of giving away Eddie Betts for Dale Thomas.
That's just indefensible. The other one I was going to go with, so okay, we'll do it between the two.
Right.
Between Mick Malthouse and Gary Lyon complaining that Erin Phillips took her twin children onto the ground during their celebrations because they might get hurt.
Oh, God.
Completely forgetting that
possibility,
Jordan Lewis took a 3-week-old onto the podium after a grand final, but that's fine because it was a boy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And there was a photo in the Herald Sun, I think it was, of the same man with his 3 children on the ground.
Oh, thank you, Herald Sun. So I will actually allow you guys to have a vote on this one. So we reckon Mick Malthouse or Gary Lyon.
Oh, look, that's a dead heat, and you have to bring Malthouse into calculations because to bring the biggest dub that you've ever recruited into your club and give up probably the best thing that was in the club isn't too smart, and that was Malthouse.
Can I just make a special mention as well? Like, I know the AFL Women's Grand Final, they're taking the photos. Jay Weatherall jumping in on the photo. I know that you want to be involved. I know you want to be seen. I will
call you up on this. The girls actually motioned for him to get in there.
I'm the least political person in the world. I don't really care either way. But, like, come on. Let's leave it for the girls.
I'm with Vantz. Hang on, I've changed my mind.
They're not an option. No. So you two are a donkey vote, okay?
Yeah, all right. I'll be a donkey vote. But Vantz is right because at the beginning of the season, we did ask him to wear a crow scarf around his neck when he had a photograph taken with somebody, and he refused to have a crow scarf around his neck on the grounds that he's a bloody Port supporter. And yet there he is, throwing himself in there with his crow scarf around his neck, and I thought to myself, and I know you're not supposed to swear, but fuck off.
See, I didn't mind Jay's little stunt with what's that weasel from the feds when all the electricity crap went down. But like with all politicians, they never know when enough's enough. He had a lot of good press out of that. And then jumping in and being a dickhead with all the women and, you know, faking a Crows support, it just undid about 2/3 of that goodwill amongst a lot of people. And I reckon it's a 3-way tie, Nikki. It could be a first for the Crowcast, a 3-way tie. Be. But I'd like to respectfully add one more.
Oh, God, here we go.
Why not?
We've all had nominations.
Now, I'm not prone to...
Mind you, Damp Squid did nominate Phoenix for this as well.
Yeah, but I banned him now. I'm not prone to, you know, self-congratulatory comments, but whoever the numbnut was, or the cockwomble was, down at Triple M, who thought that their new podcast, in association with the Adelaide Football Cast, should be called the Crows Cast. Come on, fellas. You've got bloody 24/7 radio coverage. You've got podcasts coming out the wazoo on iTunes. You've got a marketing department that's probably filled with people twiddling their thumbs wondering what the hell to do next. Surely you didn't have to ride on our coattails and our success just to get a leg up in the podcasting world. So whoever the marketing genius was down at Triple M, and Ian Shuttleworth, if you're listening, mate, veto rights, come on. You're a numbnut. You could have called it anything but the Crows Cast. Thank you for putting the S and the space in, and we hope that our success just gives Jars and Louis a little bit of a leg up as they try to get a bit of an audience.
Yeah, they're doing horrible with an audience. It's too hard. I'll actually go with the other 3. We'll leave the little Crows Cast off to the side, but yeah, we'll have a joint 3 winner for the first round. I anticipate Malthouse will probably get a few more runs on the ball before the end of the year, and Kane Corns probably too.
That's good. I can't make this any louder, so just keep going. We'll just play it in the background.
Just play it in the background as we quietly have a chat.
Well, you know, we've gone to 1 hour 15, guys, so I guess all that's left to do now is talk about a tip for next week, and then we'll wind it up, I think.
Yep.
We'll go around the table. Macca, who do you reckon for next week?
I'm going to really stick my neck out and say Crows by 35.
Ooh, how the wheel turns, right? Nikki, what do you reckon?
I'd say us. I'm horrible at margins. I'll go with the league average of 21.
League average of 21. Vantz, you're a newbie, so you've got no history here.
No, I have no history. My tipping history isn't the best. Let's go the Crows. Let's just go by 4 goals, so 24 points.
Righto, and I'm going Hawthorn by 9. I think their mental dominance over us will continue. That's it for us tonight. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Vance. You've been awesome. And we'll remember to follow us on all those things that I've forgotten. And we'll see you on Thursday night for Scorpus's Cast. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
No.